Our first word is anarchy. Anarchy is a state of society without government. Perhaps better said, it's a state or society without law. There's a lot of places in parts of the world, let's say Afghanistan, where really no one runs the show. It's just a lawless society. The person with the best guns generally decides what's going to go on. There's really no formal sense of government. It comes from a couple of Greek words, and we get a lot of words that start with an that mean without, and archos, which means leader, arch or ark, those words generally means old or leader or government to some extent, and we get quite a few of those in English as well. From certain words such as arch, we get archaeology, archaic, those mean old. From another root, we get words such as archangel, archetype, and so forth, meaning ruler. The word anarchy should be matched up with the sixth on the list, the absence of a government. I think you should pay attention to the arch there. That always has something to do with government in some form or the other. It should be paired up with the sixth definition on the list, the absence of government. I added the second word, albeit, because I just don't hear people using it anymore. I think when I was younger I heard people use it, but it came across my attention that a lot of people don't even know what it means. It's another word that means even though. English has a lot of contrast words, although, but, yet, however, and this is just another contrast word. It comes from English. It's a contraction, meaning although it be, and you just took out the though part. English has a lot of contractions. This one's just so old. We don't even use the apostrophe like we use in don't, can't, shan't, haven't, and so forth. We still use the apostrophe in those. It should be paired up with the ninth definition on the list, the word although. Our next word is anachronism. An anachronism is a thing or person that does not belong in that time reference. When I was young, I played music on tape players and actually a thing called a record player, a disc of a sort. Those items now, if you played them, would be considered anachronistic. People use iTunes and digital media now instead. There's all sorts of anachronisms that go on. They're just out of time. The origin is interesting. It starts off with the an or ana, which we got before in anarchy. An means without, and the chron is a Greek word meaning time or clock. That object that you sometimes put on your wrist to tell time, some people call it a watch, is technically a chronometer. It measures time. So chron is a interesting word. We use it a lot in reference to time. We get the words chronic, like a chronic condition, something that's always occurring in time. Chronology, the chronological order, you get that. And you get a lot of words dealing with time that start with chron. It should be paired up with the last definition on the list, appearing after its own time or out of chronological order. Our next word is languish. That means to lose your vigor or vitality. It comes from a Latin which is lax, which is similar to the word linguare, which meant to languish. Not a really interesting word, but sort of means to waste away, do nothing. It should be paired up with the second definition on the list, to become weak. Languish. Our next word is an interesting word, gamut. It means the entire scale or range. And by scale, we do mean scale. It originally meant a musical scale. That's the origin of it. It came from the scale they used in medieval Europe, the Greek scale, the gamma-ut scale. Gamma is a letter in the Greek alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. It's the third letter in the Greek alphabet. And they use that to indicate certain sounds of musical notes. Some of you might know that there's a variety of different musical scales that are used throughout the world, and they've changed over time. Some of you know what an A sharp is, and that's a type of scale that's used. Some of you know that than what I was raised with, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti scale. Japanese and Chinese have a different scale, so there's different ways of writing music down or interpreting musical sounds. Under the gamma ut system, gamma was the highest note, represented I think A sharp, and ut was the lowest note. So when you said gamma ut, and we say gamut now, we said the entire range. So that's where that word comes from. It's an interesting origin. Therefore, the word gamut should be paired up with the fourth definition down, the entire range. Our next word is slovenly. It's a generally reference to a messy person, maybe a little bit on the lazy side, the type of person that may have their shirt tail sticking out from their pants, maybe unclean, and it has a weird origin. It's from a Flemish word, so I don't know where that came from, which meant lazy. It's a derivative of a Middle English word, which we got, where there's a lot of communications between the Flemish and the English in medieval Europe. And we had the word slow, which meant lazy or messy. And we actually even get the word sloth from that. A sloth is a very slow animal. You might have heard of a three-toed sloth, but it represents anybody that's not really a neat freak. It should be paired with the fifth definition down, untidy or unclean in appearance or habits. Again, sometimes it has a reference to laziness or slow, but it almost always refers to untidy or unclean. Next word is novel. And don't confuse that with the book novel. It comes from the same origin. A novel is a brand new story. But novel, in a sense, in a more general sense, just means new, maybe new and exciting. It's a novel idea. When you say it's a novel idea, you're not really saying that it's a stupid idea. You're saying it's new and exciting, perhaps something worth pursuing. We get a lot of NOVs in English, and a whole lot. You get nova meaning new, so you get a supernova, that's a new star. Innovate is to create something new. Renovate is to create new again. You even get it in geographical names. Nova Scotia, which is up in Canada, means New Scotland. There's just a lot of novas that you find in the dictionary. Novel should be paired up with the seventh on the list, strikingly new, unusual, or different. Do not confuse novel with the word novelty. A novelty is new, but a novelty sometimes has the idea that it's very transient and it will go away. So a novelty sometimes has a little bit of a negative meaning. A new trend, a new fashion, it's a novelty. Our eighth word is loquacious. If you're loquacious, it means you're very talkative. And there are some people who will talk your ear off. I love that reference. The important thing about loquacious is to understand that loc or loc as you see it at the beginning here, L-O-Q or L-O-C. You get it in locution, elocution, eloquent. We've seen it before already on this, and it's very talkative. You should pair that up with the third definition on the list, talking or tending to talk much or freely. It means sometimes that you're friendly, sometimes it might be used in a slightly negative way if you're overly loquacious. Our ninth word is obdurate. We've seen these before, the ob and the dur. So even if you did not know this beforehand, maybe you could remember what it is. It means that you're stuck or non-compromising. An obdurate person just won't change their mind. They believe what they believe, and no amount of fact is going to change how they feel. If they belong to a political party and they've been voting for it, no amount of reason will change the way they think about that. That's an obdurate person. It's usually used in a very negative way. The root of it, of course, is ob, which means against. And anytime you see the word starting with ob, it generally is an intense word. That's an important rule. It means against. Against means a intensity is developing. And the der part is from the Latin, and you have a lot of it in English, the ders in English. For example, if you endure something, you can withstand, you can harden yourself against something. If something's durable, it won't break easily because it's hard. Duration is a long, hard part of time, so there's a lot of DURs in English. That should be paired up with the first definition, unyielding to persuasion or moral influences. Our last word is laconic. It means you have simple oratory, you have plain speech. Now, plain does not necessarily mean not important. It just means you say a lot with few words. Oftentimes, fewer words are more effective than many words. The word itself, laconic, comes from a region in Greece, Laconia, which was part of the Spartan territory. Spartans were not the philosophers of the ancient world. Those were the Athens. The Spartans were very, very much military people, and they acted rather than talked. And people in Greece just thought that was weird as all get out, so they sort of made fun of them for not speaking a lot and just saying a little. They didn't think they were too bright. But you have that continuing today where people who don't say a lot sometimes are first thought as being sort of not smart, but the Spartans were actually quite smart, and they accomplished quite a bit through their military. We remember more about Athens, so maybe there was something to be said for the Athenian prejudice against the laconic attitudes, the plain speech, the simple speech that the Spartans had. It should be paired up with the eighth down on the list, using few words, expressing much in few words, concise. All those mean laconic. Thank you for listening. We just finished the set of 10.